Thank you, Terence. And Terence, I'd like to introduce uh, the next speaker for today, Terence Choo, right? And let's share a little bit about him, right? Now, replacing talented employees costs way more than keeping them. So why do so many people skip that investment? So Coach Terence Choo has a method to solve two issues at once. Employee retention, right? Like, and burnout prevention, right? Using a unique assessment tool that actually works, right? Now, former Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong presented him with the NS Man of the Year award in 2017. Since then, Terence's assessment tools have reached nearly 2,000 people who are national servicemen and full-time uniformed officers in our Singapore police force, right? And here's one thing you might not know about Terence, right? He once failed his IPPT, right, which is the test they do in national service itself, right? And then but then he went on to complete several ultra marathons and ran the 2.4K kilometer test in the IPPT in under 9 minutes in his 40s, right? So please welcome Coach Terence Choo.
Thank you. So today we're talking about leadership. And leadership is also about being able to create an environment where we're able to keep our best talent. So few questions we want to explore is why do people leave and how do we make staying in a company, in an organization attractive? All right, so let's start with the topic of burnout. Now, let's define the problem together. Actually, let's define the real problem when it comes to burnout. Right, we already know that burnout globally is on the rise. And if we don't do anything about it, it will just continue to trend that way. So I'm curious to know your thoughts, and you can put your answer in the chat. Is burnout just one level of intensity? If it's one, you just put one. Or are there many different levels of burnout? If you think it's many, just type in the word many. Just want to see what your responses are like. So I'm taking a look at the chat box. Okay, Sandrine says many. Yes. Okay, so I think we kind of agree on that. There are many levels of burnout. So then the next question is, if there are many levels to burnout, then why don't we talk about burnout more precisely? Why do we always say burnout as though that there's only one level, like, I have a flat tire? So for example, medium level burnout is where staff gets disengaged, and that's not good for business. A higher level burnout is more expensive, right? It means that your talent leaves and you need to spend money to hire, to interview, and there's also loss of institutional knowledge. And of course, at the extreme is extreme burnout. And I define this as a loss of all hope. Sometimes that even means the loss of the will to live. And unfortunately, I know more than a couple of people who have lost all hope. So in all this, how can we actually measure burnout? Are there any tools out there, right? Because we can't really fix what you can't measure. So how can we measure? Now, there are some common tools that are being used. Okay, I'll just give you some examples. There's the Maslach burnout inventory, the Copenhagen burnout inventory, and so on. Now, they all measure burnout. However, they don't offer any fixes, especially for the person who is answering those questions in the surveys for the employees. They don't offer any fixes. So we understand what's the status, but there's no solution. So what if there was a way to measure employee health and burnout risk efficiently, cost efficiently, cost of time, right? And cost of traditional methods, for example, that rely only on coaching. What are the options out there? Now, if you've been to a workplace wellness event, you probably know that the content is often quite generic, especially if you have gone to an event or a similar event that happens every year. It's pretty much quite the same thing, not so personalized. And if it's highly personalized, it also usually means that it's very costly. So I'm thinking, what if we can deliver personalization at scale and also in a very cost-effective way? The next question is, how can we notice progress? Let's say if we have several employee wellness initiatives and we want to track our employee well-being, how do we notice progress other than visually seeing that your employees are healthier, they're more energetic? And it's hard to notice progress when we are not able to measure it. Then the next question is what if we can track that progress over time for an organization? What if you have some sort of a dashboard that looks like this, that you're able to see how the entire organization is doing in terms of their rest, their stress management, and so on? Would that be something that's useful? Then you might ask, well, if employees are going to take part in the survey and they know that the employees are going to see the results, then will they actually answer honestly, or will they like try to, just give ideal answers? Well, here's an idea, right? To ensure privacy, right? If only aggregated data is shared with the parent company and not the actual personal data, then you get the best of both worlds, right? The individual know that they're going to see their data, but it's not being shared, only aggregated data. So let me share with you a particular scenario. Let's say there are two companies and they spend pretty much about the same amount of money, but doing different things. So let's say they spend $1 million over 3 years. Company A, the first one, spends on preventive action, right? Focus on actively being involved in employee well-being and building an ecosystem. The second one, focus on redemptive action. When something happens, staff are already burnt out, then they come into action, they try to make things better. And as a result, they're also spending a little bit more, or maybe a lot more, on replacing their staff. Now, there is a little bit of uptick towards the end, but here's the interesting contrast. They both spend the same amount of money, but they spend it in a different way. Company A spends it on prevention. The other one waits for something to happen, and then they firefight. So if you can imagine, you have a good friend in another company, how would they then decide they would best spend this $1 million? It's probably going to be the same way how you would think of spending that $1 million in your own company. So I noticed that there are generally three types of organizations. One type are the industry leaders, those that have very strong employer branding. Example is DBS. I was actually seated in the same table as them when they won some award for workplace wellness. Number two is those that are aspiring to be the top. Maybe they are close, or maybe they are within range. And then the third one is they're just trying to survive. They're not thinking about employer branding, and surviving is important. So the organizations that I work with, for example, the Singapore Police Force is one organization where their employer branding is important, right? Their staff retention is very important, right? It is very expensive to replace an officer who has just resigned because they need months of training. It's not like they can hire somebody the next day or the next week. So organizations 1 and 2 are typically the kind of organizations that we currently work with. Then the next question is, what about ROI? I put in all this money. Is there real ROI? Is there a health dividend? Okay, so this is not from me. This is according to Work Well Leaders Organization. And this is a direct screenshot, right? A return on investment for every $1 invested, I'll read out the small print, in workplace adjustments on mental health and overall health has a 5x return on ROI, return on investment, right? This is according to a report by 500 companies in Singapore a few years ago. Okay, so I'm going to move into the FAQ section and I'm going to answer some of the most commonly asked questions so that we'll be able to get through this with a bit more speed. Now, what's the assessment tool that we use? It's called a health map, and it's an overview of a person in terms of 10 different areas of health. And what's interesting is it shows you the interdependencies, and it also uncovers some hidden obstacles, like somebody who is maybe trying to eat better but not seeing any result. The hidden barrier might come from something else. It might be their rest is poor, or their stress, or something else. How long does the assessment take? Typically, it only takes about 8 minutes. And what does it look like? Right, it looks like this. If you're familiar with Strengths Finder or MBTI, you respond to different statements. We do like to tell participants to avoid choosing neutral as far as possible, so that the report that they will get will be a bit more meaningful. So it looks like this. This is a visual report that everyone gets. And as they go in, right, they're able to see their score and what it means. Okay, other than the visual map, is there anything else? Of course, right? There are 20 plus pages of detailed analysis of patterns. So for example, the one that we're looking right now, it's a bit small, is on the category of rest. So you're able to see what it means and why it matters. We also are able to identify what are your strengths and also what are some of the barriers that we have uncovered. So this is about pattern recognition. It's not about making any recommendations at this point of time. And there's, of course, questions to help the user explore a little bit further how they can improve their situation. Number 5, what is coaching? Now, let's do a very quick thing. I know I can't see all of you, but if you can turn on your camera, let's do this real quick. Okay, if you're holding something, just don't put anything in your hands. I want you to switch on your camera if you're able to do that. And then just look at the palm of your hand like this, okay? This way. Okay, now I want you to turn your hand over like this, real quick. Now with the left hand, put it up as high as you can. Okay, put it down. Okay, now final instruction. I'm only going to say it once. Raise your right hand as far as you can reach. Now give me 1 more inch. Okay, everyone, did you see what has happened? Somehow, even though I asked you to raise your right hand as far as you can, as much as you can, you still had that reserve in you. You still found that little bit more, that 1 more inch. And whether is it coaching that Sanjay was talking about, or whether is it health coaching, the same is true. Most of us will not stretch beyond our comfort zone unless we have somebody who is focused on doing that particular thing. Just like any kind of Olympic athlete or national athlete, they're already performing at such a high level, but they want to access another level of excellence. So that's what's coaching really about. Next question, do we offer coaching? The answer is yes. We have certified health coaches who are able to guide users with their health maps and to be able to interpret it, and also to help them to have some to and fro, some questions to guide them to figure out what is the exact 2 or 3 actions that they can take so that they'll get the most results. Number 7, do all employees need coaching? The quick answer is no, coaching is really not for everyone. We usually find that between 10 to 20% of our participants actually want coaching. Some of them are quite burnout and they feel that there's a strong need for them to do something about it, while others are relatively healthy, but they just want to be even better. Number 8, can data analytics be displayed according to region? Let's say your company has different regions. You're operating in 3 countries or you have different departments. We can also take this data and show you different segments. So you're not seeing one entire map of your entire company, but you can also look at greater detail and make customized plans depending on which region or which country you're operating in. Second last question. Now, after doing all this, how can we actually sustain change? So we have thought about that. And when a user is able to select a habit, a specific habit, it could be hydration related, it could be getting better rest, so they have more mental clarity when they're at work, right? We're not only able to create that habits inside our ecosystem, we're also able to make it fun, right? To have a leaderboard. So this could be across an entire department, it could be across a unit, and to make it fun so that there's this social element, there's this element of social support. And the last question that I have here is, how can I experience a demo or do a small pilot run with my company? That's simple. Take out your phone. This is the QR code to my WhatsApp mobile number. So you can just go ahead and scan it and just say hi. We can make an arrangement to find a matching timing. And of course, if you're curious to see how your own health map will look like, it's also a good time for me to share with you and pass you the link and walk you through that process. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat or just send it straight to me. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time and your attention. I hope to speak with you soon.